as I mentioned last week, we have been working on a name change from SFC to Young Canadians for Resources, or YCR for short. So for those of you who are just seeing YCR for the first time, we are an advocacy group made by students and young professionals for students and young professionals, and we believe that Canada can have a strong future in resources, the economy, and the environment. Joining us today is Jonathan Paquette. Jonathan's resume includes over 10 years of direct management experience in the retail industry. Here, he has a successful record in leading multiple sales teams to excellence. He is presently coordinating all business, program, and personal aspects for Waterotor Energy Technologies Inc. It's here that he is instrumental in leading the company to commercialization. He's passionate about protecting nature and the environment and is now working directly with Waterotor's executive team to execute the corporate plan and bring this technology to the world. Just before I hand the floor over to Jonathan, please know that attendees are encouraged to ask questions throughout the presentation using the Q&A box below, and we will address all of these at the end of the session. Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jonathan. And whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and share your screen.
Great. Well, thanks a lot, Anna. Thank you all for attending. I'm glad to be here and talk to you a little bit about what I do here at Waterotor, but also my presentation is really focused on what we can do as individual, each and every one of us, to basically help this crisis that we're in. So the crisis, the environment crisis, is not only about energy, but it's about everything that we do in life. So I'll share my screen here and go through this little presentation that I cooked up for everyone. You know, my background being in retail, basically just brick and mortar, regular stores, and you know, growing in the renewable energy space subsequently to that has really, you know, opened up the way I see things, and with all the events that I go to all the time, become, you know, a bit of an expert in renewable energy, but also in sustainability in its whole. So the whole world is shifting and changing the way we do things in order to better the situation that we're in right now. And so I put this presentation together just so we can see how can we help as individual, each and every one of us, to basically get this issue sorted out. So everybody can see my screen. Is that all good? Perfect. Go. So first things first, how can we help? I'm going to touch on a few different subjects here. Again, from my background, starting in retail and from going all the way to where I'm at right now in renewable energy. So I'm going to share with you some of the knowledge that I've acquired along the way, and also debunk some of the things that, you know, are being said that are not necessarily true. So here we go. How can we help as individuals? Well, the first thing I want to touch on is the climate problem and what are the causes of it. And, you know, the biggest cause, in my personal opinion and my expert opinion, is the consumer behavior. It's what everybody is doing right now that is causing issues. And so from there, I'm going to share my recommendations and the way I see how we could fix some of these issues, starting with ourselves, but also by sharing this information with others and how to fix the issues. So, of course, the growing energy demand is definitely one of the keys here. We need more power and we consume more. The industries are getting, you know, it's our consuming problem. So first thing I'm going to talk about, of course, are the issues, the energy production issues around the world. A lot of fossil fuels still to this day being used to produce energy, and there's nowhere around it. Again, our need for electricity keeps growing. Then the second thing I want to talk about are cars. You know, are EVs really the solution? And what are the things that the facts that we know that are not being talked about really? Then I'm going to talk about, you know, the supply chain, transport, planes, and entertainment, because those are all very big factors in the climate issue that we're facing. So the solution being presented are renewable energy. We hear about governments promoting renewable energy as a solution for our problems. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and what the solutions that are being are suggested. Electric vehicles, the talk about all cars going electric is definitely a big thing. And then, of course, the main solution that we hear about these days are batteries. So we'll talk about that a little bit as well. So first thing I want to talk about is really our consumer behavior and how can we help in sharing the information and helping in that. So as I mentioned, the energy demand is growing, but our consumer behavior is also growing. Companies are marketing to us that we need the new iPhone, we need the newest gadget, any new tech that comes out, everybody wants to put their hands on right away. And that's causing issues because we need to move these goods around the planet. So the first thing I want to talk about is really one thing we can all do is just buy local. So we have to look at labels. Everything can be manufactured locally, and that's a big thing. So people need to understand that if we look at labels, we can identify, you have options. At the grocery store, you have options. When you buy clothing, you have options. And so it's really, really important to look at the labels and pick what makes sense. So so as I was saying, food, you've got the option here in Canada. You can buy it from Mexico, you can buy it from the US, or you can buy it from Canada, right? So the smart thing to do is buy local food. And then really the next thing that I can talk about for food, and I've experienced both ways, is you can make your own food. People have started doing gardening. Gardening's trending, and it's been done for past thousands of years. But really, it's an easy way to lower the cost, but also reduce the emissions, right? We talk about food as being the fuel to our body. Well, we can also look at food costing fuel. If the food is coming from the other end of the planet, well, it's definitely burning a ton of fuel to get to your plate. So we have to be mindful that reducing emissions is not only about, oh, I'm driving less, I'm using my bicycle, I'm buying an EV. It's about everything that we do, including, we'll get back to clothing after that. But from my personal experience, I started with a small garden, didn't do much, but it was fun and I liked it. So I did look into how can we improve on that. And so the solution was organized gardening. So I've been part of this project now for a year. It's our first year. I'll show this little tiny video here. You can see this is our little garden. We are 10 people, put all our money together and decided that we're going to hire a professional. One of us had the land, and now we're 10 of us just working on this garden, harvesting, and we had super massive success in the first year. Everybody works, everybody eats the crops that's fall. So we've pulled everything out of the garden. We've had major harvest. So there's different organizations that are growing and that are starting to make people understand that you can do this at home. Anybody can have a garden patch that is going to be producing a lot. Organized is better. We've had more success. And because I've done both, I can tell it's been much better to participate with other people and hire the professional to get this all organized. So really, and then at that point, there's ways to get your money back. You can sell produce, you can sell seeds, you can sell plants, and you can sell the knowledge. So really, we're redoing what was been done. We've paid for it. We got the knowledge. Then we can share it and expand and tell people how to do it. This is a big garden because we're 10 people in it, but anybody can have that in their backyard, and or there's definitely groups that are organizing so we can save on food costs, but also help the planet with this simple thing. Now, second thing I wanted to, well, as I mentioned, looking at labels, but that's really mainly in clothing, any furniture that we buy, looking at the labels, where it's made, who's making it, and what's it made of. So there are companies out there that are doing great things for the environment. And so it's just a matter of finding them and knowing where they are. I personally buy all my clothing now from 10 Tree. So any piece of clothing you buy, they plant 10 trees. Very simple business model, but it's the way to offset the carbon emission. And, you know, organic cotton, who's making it, how it's made. Well, it's important to support, you know, companies and countries that are doing it right, and not just, you know, going for the latest fashion, cheap clothing, buying the cheapest stuff so that we stay in fashion. Well, you know, there's a lot of companies that are doing it right. For the ocean, every time you buy something from them, they pull a pound of trash from the ocean. You've got companies like Tommy Hilfiger and others that are doing sustainable clothing, recycled denim, and recycled clothing. So that's really important. Again, as I was saying, for furniture as an example, there's local furniture you can buy, or you can buy furniture from China, right? It's just a matter of looking at the label. It's going to be more expensive, but ultimately it's one of the key solutions to reducing the emissions. And then so the next part I want to talk about quickly is transportation. Debunk a little bit of the myths around, you know, combustion engine versus electric vehicles. So this is just a few facts about EVs that not many people know, right? It's about looking at the supply chain in its whole. So when you're talking about a Tesla battery, you're talking about a half-ton battery, but to build that battery, you need to move around 250 tons of earth to dig for all the materials that you need for the battery. And the issue with that is those 250 tons of earth are not being moved around using batteries. They're used massive equipment that use diesel to dig through the earth. So really, when you look at the supply chain in its whole, is it really greener to burn fuel to dig earth, or to burn fuel in your car itself? So a lot of things that are not being told that need to be shared and understood by people. And again, the battery life on these cars don't last very long. You know, we see people having issues after 4 or 5 years of having EVs, and those batteries are extremely expensive, and the recycling is not being done the right way. It's very expensive. So, you know, there are things that we need to look at here. And if we're up here in Canada, as an example, the climate 6 months of the year is below freezing temperature, and that causes severe issues for the batteries. They lower their efficiency. The companies will say 30%, but it's more like 50%. And you're using some of the bottled energy in your car to heat it up. Well, I always tell people, wouldn't it be nice to have an engine that was naturally producing heat? Oh, wait, we already have that. It's called a combustion engine. So, you know, things that need to be understood. If you're in southern area, definitely, but you know, up here in Canada, it does pose a big challenge. If you have an indoor garage where you're storing it before and then after, like, you know, traveling, there are definitely good things about EVs, but people need to understand that the whole supply chain is really important to look at. So, you know, just a few things about combustion engines. You know, they do produce heat in cold weather. The infrastructure is already built. We do have local manufacturing of cars, both in Canada and the US and Europe and in Asia. So there's no reason for people to be buying cars from overseas. You couldn't buy a car that's made locally. And the maintenance is lower because it's been done for many years. So, you know, carbon is the big bad, fossil fuel is the big bad. We like to blame everything on it right now, but you know, there's a lot of things that need to be understood. And really, if you want to lower emissions, that's where it happens. So this map here shows all the marine traffic. That's live last week. So all the green ships are cargo vessels. they burn a tremendous amount of diesel to move the goods all around. So what I was saying by buying local and looking at labels is to reduce these emissions. Those are the polluters, not the cars. These are the polluters. And some of them are moving cars from left to right. All the red dots there are fuel tankers. So moving fuel and oil all across the globe while burning fossil fuel. So these are the polluters, and the reality is batteries will never power these big ships. It's impossible. And then I talked about entertainment, cruise ships, same thing. They will never be powered by battery. So really, you got to look at where the emissions are coming from, and that's the highest polluter. Then number two, we've got planes. That's the live plane traffic in the world, if people have not seen that. So being mindful of how we travel and the frequency of our travel is really important. Fortunately and unfortunately, the pandemic has made Zoom a thing, and now we do all or most of our meetings through Zoom, and that's actually a good thing. We lowered the transport. It's forced a lot of the industries to change their behavior and adapt to the situation. So it's about lowering our emissions. And as I mentioned, planes will also never run on batteries. Air Canada just did this big analysis, said, oh, we've got our first hybrid plane. It has a 200-kilometer range. Well, that's nice, but it's not solving the issue. So what's the solution to that problem? Well, we got to reduce our demand. That's number one. Do your part, buy local. Convince people to do the same, be mindful about what you're doing. And then number three is innovation, which brings us to where I currently work. So innovation, what do we mean? It's the race to cleaner burning fuels. So there are solutions, and the main solution for the three industries I just talked about, planes, transport, and entertainment, is going to be hydrogen. It's what we're talking about. It's what all these conventions I go to, everybody's talking about hydrogen as being the next fuel, because it is fuel. You can actually power a plane, a boat, a ship using hydrogen. Now, the main problem with hydrogen right now, it's very expensive, and there are three types of hydrogen. The gray hydrogen is produced by burning fossil fuel, so not helping. Blue hydrogen produced by burning fossil fuel, but offsetting the carbon. So carbon offset, carbon sequestration. There's tons of companies that will let you offset your carbon if you so wanted to. 10 Tree is an example I mentioned. When you buy a piece of clothing, they plant 10 trees. But if you want to offset more carbon, you can buy a carbon offset membership and basically offset your carbon for your whole year. And they've even got gifts, Mother's Day gift, offer your mother a carbon offset. Those so those are things that we need to understand that we can actually do to help with the issue. And then number three is green hydrogen. Green hydrogen is produced by renewable energy. So it's really the key to doing it, but only 1% of the hydrogen currently being produced is green. So, again, renewable energy, that's the solution. That's how you make green hydrogen. Well, there's a couple of things couple of facts that people need to understand. Right now, governments are pushing wind and solar as the solution. Well, the problem with that, wind and solar have intermittent power. So the maximum efficiency on a wind turbine, about 45%, and the maximum amount of sun that can be collected in a day is about 33%. So those are the facts. So again, when you have intermittent power, you need storage, you need battery storage. And as I mentioned, batteries are very expensive to produce, but also produce a ton of emissions to produce the batteries. And just some little facts here about wind and solar. To create a 100 megawatt wind array requires 30,000 tons of iron ore, 50,000 tons of concrete, 900 tons of plastic. So how are we getting all this concrete, iron, and plastic made? By burning fossil fuel. So again, you're replacing a problem with another problem. Same thing goes for solar. You got cement, steel, and glass. About 150% more products go into building the solar panels. And another problem the wind and solar have is the waste. So they only have a lifespan of about 10 to 15 years, and they create a huge waste problem along with the batteries that also add to the waste problem. So solution, more batteries, not so much. Just to give you a little bit of an idea, it would take 500 years at the current rate of battery production to produce enough electricity for 1 day of America's usage. That's just America. So if Tesla started making the batteries to store enough energy, it would take 500 years just to make enough battery for 1 day. So, you know, those are facts, and I'm happy to share where I got the information. So, you know, there's a lot that need to be thought of when trying to look at a solution. So what that brings us to the current company I work for, Waterotor. As there's a blade in the back. Waterotor is different than wind and solar because we work 24 hours a day. The water always flows, and so basically our main selling feature is that we produce electricity 24 hours a day, therefore not needing batteries. So our range of products are showed here. The smallest Waterotor on the left can be used by people, individuals, locally, people that want to get off grid. One machine like that is enough to power a house, and then you can have a few of them. And you know, 24 hours a day producing electricity can be paired with solar and wind. But again, it's having that base load power that really helps, and also helps the grid. The grid doesn't like intermittency. And that's why the storage is important. You can't just turn off a coal plant or turn off a nuclear plant as you wish because the sun's shining. Oh, we're going to turn down the nuclear plant. Well, that's just not how it works. It takes days to wind up and down a nuclear plant. Same goes for coal plant. We're talking about thermal energy. So it takes a lot of time to, these things just don't move. So you turn them off and replace them. But it's very, very difficult on the grid to rely solely on wind and solar. The middle unit that we've got here is our industrial type unit. We sold these to the Canadian Navy, and they've been working for a year now in Winnipeg. They've got an array of 5 units and producing electricity 24 hours a day. So 8,000 hours per year versus solar and wind, which is about 2,000 to 3,000 hours per year max. And then on the third, on the right here, we have our ocean unit, which is not built yet, but it's a prototype that we're working on, 20 megawatt of power, very, very large floating structure. Again, it does require steel and concrete and all the rest of the building materials to build, but we have to build them somehow, and just the same that goes for the wind and solar, but these have a lifetime expectancy of 30 years plus. So that's really, we build them really sturdy so that we don't have all these issues, and they can also be refurbished. So just to give a little bit of a visual, I'll just show this 1 minute tiny video of the installation. So that's another good point. You know, there are other people trying to work in hydrokinetic. The only difference between us and them is we operate in lower flows, so under 6 miles an hour. All the competition is all high flow lift device, so propellers and Darius, which all require 6-7 mile an hour water flow to extract the power. So it's a growing business. You know, wind and solar have been around for 50 years. We've been around for 10 years. Our main competition, the largest company, is 15 years old. So it's a brand new field and industry that we're pioneering in, and so it's going to grow in the years to come. And ultimately, we want to, you know, extract power from the oceans, produce green hydrogen, and there basically have clean fuel to burn in the coming decades. So I see a bunch of questions that can go through those. I hope there's a lot of information in there, and I just threw a lot of facts and a lot of stuff, and went a little bit all over the place. So I apologize for that, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions and dive deeper into any of the topics I spoke about.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your presentation. Just want to start off by saying that. Sounds like Waterotor has some super exciting technologies on the go, so it'll be very fun to watch those grow and develop.